We first met Bianca about 10 years ago when she was working at Jellyfish. She was client services director and was developing the client services department there. And I remember I'd just had my first baby and I was exhausted. And I sat down to lunch one day and she joined me. And I discovered that she had 4 children, 2 of whom were twins. And in just that one informal lunchtime chat, I learned so much. It was really, really inspirational. And I discovered she'd launched and grown an e-commerce business all on her own whilst bringing up her 4 children. And she managed to balance this whilst being an incredibly dedicated mum at home and this amazing, glamorous, graceful, powerful, respected client services director in what was a very male-dominated agency at the time. Sorry, my battery is actually dying as we speak. So Bianca's really a beautiful, warm human being. Her success is inspirational, both in the digital sphere and doing what she does best, which is helping individuals maximize impact so they can flourish in all areas of their life. So really excited to hand over to you, Bianca.
Thank you so much. That was just the most beautiful introduction. I feel really, really moved and just, I'm so happy faces, but also to be invited in to your wonderful world, your wonderful business. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Like Romany says, I'm a busy lady. I'm head of digital at Publicis at the moment. Is that, I can just hear background noise, but I can't see anyone. So let me know if you need me to stop. So yes, I head up digital here at Publicis, but beyond that, I am an author. I've written a couple of books. I'm writing another one now that focuses on big impact. But the most important thing is I really fundamentally believe in graceful productivity and avoiding burnout through personal accountability, because I firmly believe that impact actually doesn't need to be a struggle. And actually, we've all got the ability and the right to flourish in all aspects of our lives. But I've definitely learnt the hard way. And I've had lots of sort of ups and downs that I can talk to you about. It's not all been easy, and it's certainly not a glossy tale of just gliding into having maximum impact. So what I'd love to do over the next hour is just really share with you some of the aspects that have worked for me and hope that actually I can help you expand into your greatest potential. So what I love to do is just make sure everything is fun and light. But importantly, that we all take accountability for who it is that we actually are. So as we're learning in the next hour, I'd like you to think about who you are, you, heart and soul, you, and what it is that you actually want to feel and why you want to feel these things and where is it that you want to go. And ultimately, in the next hour, I'd love for you to expand your mind and get into a place of fulfillment, because ultimately that's what we all want, this sense of peace and this sense of fulfillment. So as we go through the next hour, I'd like you to just try and be really fully present, please. Sorry, let me go back. For a little bit of housekeeping, I really suggest that you just turn your phones off, and if you can, turn your notifications off, your emails, and just really be present. I think the fact that Tarek has organised this session demonstrates how much he cares about everyone's well-being and just embracing this gift of time and this gift of an hour that is just for you. It's so special, so make most of it. So really just try and be present and let's relish this time. Have a notebook to hand, a journal if you've got a personal journal, because I'm going to be sharing some reflections, some exercises. Even light a candle. Let's really distinguish this from the daily tasks and the daily grind, because this is a moment for you and for you to expand. So something that I always do before I get into whether it's a creative exercise or a personally reflective exercise is I do a little grounding ritual, which is where I put my feet flat on the ground and I take deep breaths. So I really encourage you to do this yourselves right now, just to center yourself. So just put your feet flat on the ground and just take a really, really deep breath in and then slowly out through your nose, and just center yourself it's so important. And I'm freshly back from Cannes, and Tarek knows the freneticism that's there. That energy is just, it's super intense, and I'm still trying to come down from it, and it's not easy, and I have to be very conscious of it. I need to put my feet on the ground and take a deep breath. And so wherever you are in your life, this is a very good way of just centering yourself from the whirlwind. So in the next hour, I'm going to give you a little introduction to myself and my story, the highs and the lows. And then I want to talk about bio-individuality, because it's so important that we all acknowledge and recognise that there is never one size fits all in terms of a remedy of how to flourish. We are all uniquely different, and what works for your partner or your mother won't necessarily be what works for you. So we're going to talk about bio-individuality, and then go into the lens of personal energy and personal time management, and then get to that place of what does decisive intentionality mean, because I believe it is so important that we are purposeful and have definiteness of purpose in our daily lives. And so we have to take accountability and consciousness for that, and that comes through the power of our decision making. I'm going to have 2 exercises for us to do today. So I hope time allows for us to lean into the exercises and not be too rushed. But also, whilst I'm talking, there'll be other little nuggets and tips for private reflection that you can do at home. So I hope this all sounds good and inspiring, and that together we're all going to learn lots over the next hour. So I'm going to launch with my story, which is one where it's a tale of having followed my heart. It's one of having had a lot of fun, of constantly growing and learning and expanding, because that's my passion and quite a natural state for me. But it's also a cautionary tale of compromise and self-sacrifice. And I've definitely burnt out along the way and had immune collapse and chased success ideologies that actually weren't mine and hurt me along the way. And this is why I'm here today, and really devote myself to trying to share my messages to just help others not make the mistakes that I made. So as I'm talking, please just listen through the lens of the powerful decisions that I made, and where I've created energy and momentum, and where I've felt depleted and drained and very compromised. So the story starts with, and this is a long time ago, back in 2004, where I'm sitting in my bed and I'm feeding my newborn baby girl. I've got my toddler running around my feet. The house is an absolute mess. I probably hadn't even showered, and there are cornflakes crunched into the carpet, and I'm in absolute chaos. I suddenly remember it's my then husband's 10-year anniversary. It's our anniversary. It's like, shit, I need to get a gift. What am I going to do? I've just got this 4-week-old baby. How am I going to manage creating something magnificent today? And I don't want to get up and shower and go to the shops. So I ended up writing a poem that was called A Decade to Remember, and just captured all of our memories across the decade. I then found photos around the house, a large A4 frame I had, and I just printed out the poem, arranged it with photos, and then he came home from work in the evening. It was lovely. This is a very nice gift. It was hanging on the wall in our hallway, and over the next few months, all the visitors that came to see the baby saw this gift on the wall and asked where I'd bought it. And so it just started to sort of trigger an opportunity of, could this be a marketable commodity? And I certainly turned it into a marketable commodity, and just went about actually building a business, building a website, building a manufacturing business to start creating all sorts of personalized gifts. I wanted to just really shake up the personalized gift industry. I was interested by new technology that was available. And so just set about building a website. And then this is so long ago, I used Overture, not even Google, and just placed my first ad. And then within 45 minutes, I'd sold one of these gifts, and that was it. I was off. So I then had a decade of just learning so much about when you apply the right focus, energy, and graft towards something you care about, you can create anything you so desire. I went from just making these products at home to then starting to employ local staff. So I had mums coming into the house. I had lovely pensioners coming into the house. The business started growing and growing. I had customer service in the playroom, a large format printer up in the nursery. The garage was the production and shipping area. It just grew and grew and grew. And I realized I was quite good at actually selling these products to retailers. Retailers at this time were interested in drop ship opportunities and partnering with people like me. It just started growing and growing. I was working with Not on the High Street as one of their founding partners. And by the end of the year, I'd signed with WH Smith, which meant that suddenly I had some really big logos. And by the end of that first year, I was with every online gift retailer in the United Kingdom. By the next year, every personalised letter from Father Christmas would have been shipped from me in my house with a lot of glitter and mess and craziness. But we were selling these letters from Father Christmas for Tesco's, Woolworths, Asda. It was bonkers. And I was learning so much about passion and energy, like I say, and of just making things happen. So it grew and grew and grew. I was building an omni-channel business where I was manufacturing side of the business, the D2C e-commerce site, but then also I had stores and I had concessions in Debenhams. I was about to launch a franchise model, so excited. And then I found out I was pregnant again, which was a surprise. And this time it was twins. So I went from thinking, okay, I can carry on with the business expansion with a baby on the hip, to then thinking, well, realistically, how can I do this with 2 babies? I can't. So I really took it as a sign from the universe to just stop, focus in on the family and just be very present. And that was a very conscious decision. And I have no regrets at all, because I have to say that first year after the twins were born, the house was chaotic. And yes, it was a mess. And no, I wasn't always clean. But that purpose of nurturing those 4 children and just being so present for them was one of the happiest periods of my life, which is quite an interesting reflection when you think about our daily work and the daily grind, and how do we get meaning and purpose into our daily tasks, because that is something that makes life enriching. So eventually sold the business, focused on family, and then I got headhunted to go and join Jellyfish. Sorry, I joined Jellyfish, which was wonderful, and that was just such a lovely journey, being there at a time when I remember that the founder, Rob Pierre, in one of our town halls saying, "We've just hit 100 people." And that just was such a momentous moment. And it was lovely to have been in an environment like that, where there were just brilliant brains buzzing around, and it just felt like the land of opportunity. And I was really hooked to be in that kind of buzzy environment. So I had a very happy couple of years there, learning about how to play the corporate game, but in a kind of comfortable, cozy startup kind of way. Then I got headhunted to join Dentsu, and this is where I was an absolute fish out of water. I had no knowledge of how to play the big corporate game, and I was compromising myself to try and fit into a very, very tough political environment, where I had chairs thrown at me. I had people put their hands over my mouth to shut me up from speaking in meetings. And it was uncomfortable, but I kept pushing myself, trying to fit in, and really, really kept burning out. I would do crazy things, like the pressure was all consuming. I would go to sleep, set my alarm for 2 a.m, work for a couple of hours between 2 and 4 to work on the deck, and then go back to sleep for a bit, or try to, then get up and commute into town. I thought all this was normal, and this was just how you played the big corporate game. Unsurprisingly, I got very, very ill very often, and it was unsustainable. And I was just shrinking as a person. I really was too compromised, trying to fit into this tough environment where commercial mattered, but people didn't. And I needed to have a revelation, which I eventually did, of, oh, wow, there's a cultural disconnect for me, my value set. I don't fit with this particular environment and this particular team. And the minute I realized there was nothing wrong with me, but it wasn't just the right environment, I suddenly became empowered and started looking for cultures and organizations where I could thrive and where my values were honored. And that was a very, very big shift for me. And from that point on, I never compromised again. And I started to build out my workshops, my books, and started to work out how I could flourish and maintain flourishing. So the sort of 2 factors for me in terms of burnout during my business expansion, I was addicted to what I was creating. It was fun and it was invigorating, but I compromised myself chasing this dream, and I didn't protect myself. So I did end up with total immune collapse at one point in hospital. All my hair had fallen out. I was skinny mini, and I sort of felt like I'd been living the dream, but I clearly wasn't, and my body was telling me stop, stop, stop. And then when I was in the sort of Dentsu corporate realm, I was just trying to fit in, and I wasn't honoring my values. And that again was where I was pushing myself and chasing ideologies that weren't actually mine. And so I have really, really learnt that it's up to us to take accountability for ourselves to ensure that we can serve our organizations, our families, and ourselves the best, which is why everything we're going to go through today is about you learning that it is, yes, there are extrinsic things that happen, but it's you that actually controls how you navigate this flurry of life. So I spent far too long talking about me. But I know you're all ambitious and you're core contributors, because Tarek tells me how brilliant you are, and look at how the business is growing. I believe you're already conscious of the fact that when you step out of your comfort zone, things start to grow. And that's how we have greater impact. The thing we just have to learn how to do is just how to seize this desire for growth and impact healthily, and just get to that place of graceful productivity. So the number one motivation for everybody is the pursuit of happiness, but it's not working. We're all aware and conscious, and the Headspace app is out there, and there's so much about mindfulness and taking time for ourselves, and big shareholder agendas are about people first and the quality of people. But actually, look at the global burnout crisis that we've got. 1 in 4 Brits this year are going to be off sick long term with stress and burnout. And fundamentally, the number one cause of burnout is actually feeling this sense of a loss of control and uncertainty. And yes, there are always going to be extrinsic circumstances that are beyond our control. So there is going to be economic volatility, and there is constant technical change that's impacting how we work, how we think, how we learn. There are going to be big life moments like death or divorce, or stressful moments like having to move house. But actually, what we have the power to do is just control the decisions that we make, the attitudes that we embrace, so that we can honor our energy and our time and our intentionality to that place that leads us to fulfillment, because it really is up to us to manage this. So in terms of our bio-individuality, now I get excited by the fact that we are so diverse. It's beautiful, and it's the richness that makes all of our relationships so invigorating. Think about from a physical perspective, our bodies are all going to react to stimulus differently. So if I have a coffee, I start shaking, or at the dentist, if they put adrenaline injections in, I properly start shaking in the chair. I'm very, very sensitive to that. Other people can have a coffee before bed. Some people can go to Cannes and it's their dream and they're buzzing, they're energized by it. For me, yes, I love it, but I really need some alone time to rejuvenate physically. It's just different stimulus impacts each one of us very individually. And from a mental perspective, our belief systems start to form between the ages of about 5 and 11, and we kind of lock them in, and that's our view of the world, and we carry them on through our lives. And actually, sometimes we need to change those belief systems as we expand. And then neuroplasticity means that we can actually do that, but we've got to be conscious of it. We've got to work out how to do it, where to do it, and why to do it. And then emotionally, we're all really, really different. I'm sure you'll notice that sometimes energetically you respond to different types of people differently, and that's okay, because we're all unique, and just we'll be drawn to certain people and just repulsed by others. And that's just because we've just got a different emotional wiring, and it's okay. Just make sure you're surrounding yourself by the people that trigger the good and positive energy in you. And then sort of spiritual beliefs, sometimes there's that sort of faith in a power greater than ourselves that's really rewarding and soothing. For some people, they're not even there on that journey. That's okay. We're all unique. But the most important thing is just understanding and respecting bio-individuality, and the fact that when you're talking to a colleague or you're sitting in the pub talking to a friend, that person is a unique, diverse blend of the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And their perspectives are their perspectives, and that's fine. And we don't all have to agree and love each other and have the same passions and talents. It's just up to us to just respect individuality, but most importantly, to understand and identify and own our own uniqueness. So it's our bio-individuality that really impacts our reaction to stress. And this is the only graph in here, I promise. But this is a Yerkes and Dodson scale that was a study that was produced in the 1970s. And it's this stress productivity curve, because stress can be good for us. It can be really, really motivating, and it can actually produce some really good work. But you can actually tip down on the negative side of the scale, where you've gone over that optimal performance and you've really started to slide and glide into burnout, which is what I was doing when I was building my business. I was so excited and engaged by the impact that I was having on the bespoke gift industry and making all these customers happy. But actually, I was pushing and pushing and pushing myself and really, really hurting myself dangerously. So you need to be very aware of when you are tipping down the negative side of that scale. And you should be able to understand and recognize it in yourself. So there'll be different ways that stress manifests in you. But when you start to feel whatever those cues are in you that are dangerous, you need to work out some coping strategies, which is what we're going to talk a bit about today. But I will, I notice in myself, if I start to feel stressed, I get a bit overwhelmed and I get a bit too buzzy, like, oh, there's too much going on. I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And I realize I'm not focused or centered enough. And so I will literally take myself away from the moment and the situation, and I will go and journal. I will go and sit under a tree and put my feet flat on the floor. And I'm not kidding when I say I will do this, even if I'm meant to be in a meeting, because I suddenly recognize that I'm tripping into a place where I'm not going to serve myself best. And so I need to just take a deep breath, ground myself, and bring myself back into the present, and just focusing on what is right now. And that for me helps me just get close to what healthy productivity is. So I'm not letting the stress be a dangerous sliding scale for me. So if you want to build out your burnout resilience, it starts with this self-awareness. And I used to think self-awareness was a bit indulgent, but now actually I think it's just the most important aspect of daily life, actually. And I encourage you at the end of every day to reflect on what happened and how you behaved and what you could do differently and when you were triggered. And so just remember that you as an individual are creative, you're resourceful and whole. That's an expression that we use in our, I'm a coactive certified executive coach, and it's always about the assumption and belief that every individual is creative, resourceful and whole, and you are that person. But it's very easy to start feeling very stuck and just not able to embrace a growth mindset because you just feel very, very overwhelmed. And that can sometimes manifest feeling that we don't have the right to be here. Imposter syndrome is something that comes up in workshop after workshop. But what's reassuring with imposter syndrome is right up to the top. There's fear, and we're all just trying to just do our best. And I mean, our our CEO of Publicis Group, he leads 120,000 people. He's just been given a retention bonus for 11 million to stay in the company. He's a powerful man. But he was talking in a conference last week about the fear that he felt when he had to go and stand on stage at the World Economic Forum this year. He was terrified. He was trying to do deep breathing and just get his testosterone flowing because he was so nervous. So be reassured about the fact that everybody is just nervous as we start to enter into growth. But just be really aware of who you are and what it is that you want to feel, and do you have a growth mindset? Do you just accept the status quo, or do you actually take control for how things could feel better? Are you clear on what your strengths are? And do you tell your employers and your friends? And does everybody know what it is that you bring to the world? Because I tell you what, it becomes a whole lot more fun when you own those strengths. And something I do with my team here at Publicis is I make sure that everybody can come to me and say, look, I'm really good at this. I'm really passionate about this. And we can work out how, as well as the core role remit that they're delivering against, we can build in more of the fun stuff that they are good at and enjoy doing. So if I've got a managing director of Futurescapes, she loves public speaking. She loves it. And it's not really, of course, the revenue generation she needs to be doing and managing clients, but I make sure every month she's on a global stage somewhere talking about what she loves, because that makes her more and more powerful because she's playing to her strengths. So think about that in your daily life and make it known this is what your contribution is, and own it, really enjoy it. Now let's talk about energy. So energy impacts absolutely everything, and it's whether or not we even want to bounce out of bed in the morning, or whether it is just a drain. Think about that energy depletion that we had on that, was it the third lockdown, the January lockdown that we had? Oh my God. And the motivation it took to get out of bed and shuffle downstairs in slippers and get on another Teams call, that was low energy. But be really aware of the energy that you're exuding, because there is a sort of magnetic pull from your vibes. Are you giving off low vibes or high vibes? Because that's really going to impact how people respond to you. But your energy levels are really what are core to your ability to work, to learn, to have impact your career progression. And it's interesting that we're in such an energy crisis. Everybody's seeking more energy, but actually I think we're quite often looking in the wrong places, and we're actually striving instead of thriving. So I think it's about taking responsibility for your own energy and avoiding energy crimes. So I'm just going to very quickly go through 6 core areas of energy to just take note of. Okay, so sleep, you'll be aware of how much this matters. And I grew up in the 80s where it was like work hard, play hard. And I had a dad that was like, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. to go for a run. And I thought that was cool and great. Oh my God, no, we need to sleep. And thank goodness there's much more awareness, especially through the likes of Ariana Huffington, around the power of sleep. Just really revere it and understand that there are some restorative functions of the body that actually only happen when we're asleep. So if it's muscle growth, tissue repair, but even the brain, the synapses are kind of oiled while we sleep. So if you're depriving yourself of the amount of sleep that you need, you really are impacting the longevity of your life, but also the quality of your daily life. And we know how hard a day feels when we're tired and sleep deprived. And I remember the days where I only had 40 minutes sleep with the twins, and that was really tough. And it's hard to make decisions, and it's hard to be your best self. So here are some tips on what you can do to just create a haven, but just revere sleep. My family certainly does. It's a holy time. In terms of diet, again, with our bio-individuality, we all respond differently, but to different types of foods. But what is commonly understood and respected is that our bodies respond better to fruits and vegetables and food as close to its organic growth state as it came out of the earth. So if you can, just cut out those refined foods, because they really are draining your immune system, your cognitive function, and just really just focus on crowding out the bad stuff. It's one of the policies I have, to just have a nutrient dense diet that just and pay attention to what energizes you. And if you're feeling sludgy after a meal, perhaps you've eaten too much of the hard to digest food. And there's such a link between the healthy gut microbiome and healthy body, healthy mind. So, and I'm sure you know all this stuff, but it's about sort of becoming conscious of it and intuitively eating. So when you go to the fridge, open the fridge and think, what does my body need now? And it probably actually is an apple, not the chocolate digestive. So just expand your mind and just think about that. Fake energy is just really one of the largest crimes and contributions to our burnout crisis, because we've defaulted into this world where caffeine is normal. And as recently as 150 years ago, no one had caffeine in the quantities that we have it today. It's really interesting. And I gave up caffeine at the beginning of this year, and it's just changed my life. That's actually been a difference more than alcohol. And if you understand that every time you have a caffeinated drink, you're putting yourself in a stress state. It's an adrenaline, cortisol inducing stress state. So you're whacking your homeostatic state right up into a stress state. And isn't it funny that we all wake up in the morning and go, oh God, I need my caffeine. I want to be in a stress state. We've almost become addicted to being in this stress state, but actually it's not doing us much good. So just be aware of when you're leaning on fake energy, and if you can do anything to just get back to your natural energy rhythms. In terms of relaxation, this is fascinating. If you think about how do you actually build in relaxation, because a lot of the high functioning colleagues and friends that I know and work with, I ask them, what do you actually do to relax? And quite often it's oh God, I don't know. Isn't that crazy? So go really think about what you did as a kid to relax. What was life like before all this stress of work and children hit you? Where did you like being? What did you like doing? And could you bring more of that back into your life now? Extreme productivity is also something that I think a lot of people lean into to actually hide potentially emotional stress or some of that compromise that I was talking about. I think I was in an unhappy marriage actually for a long time, and we happily amicably divorced, and that's fine, that happened. But I think for a lot of the time I didn't want to admit that my marriage was going wrong, and so I would just frenetically work. And that was just my way of coping, being really busy. So think about when you're overdoing it at the gym, what are you doing? Why? And just become conscious of what extreme productivity is and why you're doing it. And then emotional stress is just going to hit us in waves constantly and throughout the day. Ups and downs, emotions come, they're a real thing, and there's no good or bad. Emotions just are. But some of them are really uncomfortable, and sometimes we're triggered, and it hurts or it's hard. So just be conscious of how you could try and flip yourself into a state of positive emotion. So whether that's laughing or just being present and meditating. So I want to do a very quick exercise now, but I'm only going to give us a couple of minutes, okay? Because I'm blabbering on and I want to get through this content, and I know that we only have just half an hour left. So this is an energy scale. So those 6 items that I just talked about, what I'd love for you to do is just take a few minutes to just really think about where you sit on this energy scale, whether your diet is actually making you feel quite low and depleted in energy, or if it's already high and zingy, and just mark where you are in this energy scale, because then that becomes your roadmap to what are the energy areas you need to look at in your life. So I'm going to give us 3 minutes to 10:40. Okay, so I hope just actually taking that time to just start to look at where you sit in this scale gives you some guidance towards perhaps where there are areas that you could start making conscious choices and decisions to helping you just step into a little bit more energy in your daily life. So really just think about how you can design your days around your natural energy, highs and lows. This is something that is also really important. There's a new science called ecological psychology, which is about how we respond to different environments and stimulus to create different types of output. So think of an Olympic swimmer. The minute they see that swimming pool, they are primed and ready to just work their magic in the pool, because that environment stimulates that. Someone like Stephen King is an author, so the minute he has to write another book, he has to play hard, heavy rock metal as loud as possible, and then that's his trigger that he's in the zone. So think about ways that you're energized to create the different types of tasks in your day, and kind of just optimize where you are, and perhaps rituals that you can introduce that again just honor your energy, your response, and then just make decisions that optimize you and your routines around the most energizing places and people and times of things and types of things. Okay, so time is just so elusive, isn't it? It's viewed as so elusive. It's like the most sought after commodity, and it's just slipping away through busyness and unconsciousness and this reactivity. But it really doesn't need to be that way. There's a fantastic book I recommend called 4,000 Weeks, where he really analyzes and starkly reveals that the average lifespan is 4,000 weeks long. And when you get that context of, oh my God, what am I doing with my 4,000 weeks? It suddenly becomes really, really important that we're using our time in a way that matters. And when I hear people say, I haven't got enough time, I think that's really sad, because actually you are the master of your own time. You've got custody over it, and it's up to you to refocus and reprioritize your time. And this is why intentionality is so important, because if we're passive, that time is just going to evaporate and evolve and disappear. But actually, when we're intentional, we know how to use the time and we know how to spend it meaningfully. So identify what that vision you have for your life is, so that you can then build out that strategy to execute to get there, and just make sure that you're not drifting downstream and just constantly being swept along, and then having that sort of deathbed moment where you go, oh, whoops, what I missed it. Just don't let that happen. Be conscious and be master of your time. How do we actually do this? Well, that time mastery comes down to just choosing how we spend our time, just organizing our lives based on what matters most. And so what I do very devoutly is lead time with my heart and ensure that I'm very, very present. So the most joyful moments in life are actually when we're in flow and feeling really present. So I don't believe in multitasking. I really don't. And there's lots of evidence to suggest that actually you're not more effective when you're multitasking. But just by being present is amazing how much more rewarding life feels. It genuinely is more joyful when we are fully in the moment. So when you're in a meeting, just sit and be there, present, listen to what that colleague is saying, and try not to have distracting thoughts, because actually the meetings become more productive. So this whole leading time with your heart is about what invigorates you. What are your passions? What are your energizers? How do you want to grow? So if you know you want to grow in a certain direction, are you reading books, listening to podcasts, spending time with people that can help you grow? Think about what that meaningful contribution is. So for me, I care so much about people flourishing and life not being a struggle. So yes, I know about digital marketing. Yes, I can run businesses. And yes, I can do my job really well and keep my boss happy here at Publicis. But actually, what gets me out of bed is coming to work and nurturing my team and just having impact across the organization with my blogs or the podcast I'm about to launch. And just I make sure that I have meaningful contribution every single day. So how can you build that that into your daily tasks? And how are you honouring your values? Because I promise you that unfulfillment only ripples up in our lives when there are values that are not being honoured. So be so clear on what your values are, and if all of your behaviours and your overall life honour those values. And then prioritise. Just really be fastidious with your prioritisation. I will organise, I mean, I used to, a bit too extremely when the kids were really young. I used to organise my life in 30-minute increments, including putting in when I'm going to sleep, when I'm going to exercise, when I'm going to cook, you know, that was a bit too bonkers. But what I do now is just chunk time out based on my energy rhythms across the week, the tasks that I have to create. I'll sort of cluster the kind of admin tasks for moments when I'm going to be tired and try and push all of them to end of the day or end of the week or whatever it might be. Create energy on 2 days in the office with people, back-to-back meetings and lunches, and those are the days where I will be managing my time and myself to meet with people, but I'll be snacking all day. I have nuts and seeds and fruit, and because I know I need high energy, and I wear heels, and I'm just kind of doing everything to help myself manage time and energy in a complementary way. And then I have my days at home that I just look forward to having creative time where I might turn my emails off. But I'm always organising based on what I know the impact is I need to have each week, and I plan the week accordingly. Distraction is the absolute scourge of today. I mean, it's literally this whole reactivity of the notifications on our phones. It's actually scientifically been seen to be shrinking our prefrontal cortexes. And that prefrontal cortex is like the CEO of the brain. It's the planning element of our thinking. And that is actually physically shrinking and reducing the more that we're reactive. So that is scary. So think about how you can remove distractions and just make sure you can just be fully present and focused and deliver deep work, because there's nothing more satisfying than immersing yourself in a piece of work and focusing single-mindedly. And how often do we give ourselves that gift? And it shouldn't be a gift. We should be consciously building it in. So think about how you can cleanse the stuff that distracts and drains you. And this could be habits that you have. It could even be people. Are there some people that actually are not serving your greater agenda or your values? What can you cleanse? Are there types of tasks in your daily work that really are depleting you? And you could have a chat with your manager and say, actually, could I delegate that here, there? I'm not serving anyone by doing this. And just modify, because your being will be so much more impactful when you are cleansed of that which distracts you. Okay, right, I've somehow now managed to get my mouse on my big screen. Sorry. Okay, so in terms of intentionality, I know I've gone on about this a fair bit, but I honestly believe this is how we have impact. My business that I created was a dream I knew I could create, and every minute of every day was working towards that dream. And I really want you to just own where it is that you want to go and really think about what is actually driving you to get out of bed every day. Because once you actually hone in on that intentionality piece, life becomes a whole lot more satisfying and rewarding. So the dream is actually working out what our maximum impact is. And this is individual for each one of us uniquely, but we all have this innate and compelling desire to matter. We want to matter. We want to have impact. And the number one deathbed regret is having wasted life. So it's really wasteful if we're not actually using the resources that we've been gifted with to best effect. And how we find that maximum impact for each one of us is this magic intersection between what you do effortlessly, what is actually just fun, it's not a problem, you can't understand why other people can't do it as easily as you, and what you're interested in. What do you find yourself gravitated towards reading? What did you start reading when you were a teenager that was an interest zone for you? And then what is it that the world or your team or your family actually needs? And I'd love you to do this as a little reflection this evening or the weekend. Just really work out what your intersection is, because starting to own that really just gives you this North Star of actually who you are and what that impact is that you can have. And then to deliver that impact, we really need to understand our own motivation and where that comes from and how we can increase it. And so, you know, think back again to how low we all felt during lockdown, and we lost this sense of kind of who we were and what mattered and how to operate in the world. It was a really scary time. But actually right now, we can take control of just actually thinking about our own motivation levels, and it's up to us to take accountability for it again. So what is it that gives you self-esteem? And this can be micro or macro. Do you need validation? We all enjoy a bit of validation from others, but actually, how can we make ourselves feel good? I feel good if I don't have a coffee in the morning because I made a commitment to give up caffeine this year. And so that does it gives my self-esteem a little bolster of, yay, I'm okay, I'm a good person, silly thing like that. But what is it that helps you have self-esteem and feel solid? What is that higher purpose, and what gives you joy? And then success ideals is something that I really want everybody to own, and I write about this in my book Flourish, and I'm happy to send anyone copies if you'd like. Totally my gift to you, or if you're in London, come and get one. And but I talk about the fact that quite often we're chasing a version of success that someone else is. So for instance, if you're in a family of doctors and you're just becoming a doctor because that's what the family lineage says you should do, but it's actually not your version of success. Perhaps your version of success, you know, isn't wealth, perhaps it's health, whatever it might be, but just hone what success is for you and just design what that rich, successful life looks like, and work out how you can work towards that every day, but make sure you're chasing your own joy, your own success ideals. And who are the people that inspire you? This is an interesting one. Who are those role models that you go, oh, I'd love to be like them? Because what is it? What are those attributes? What are the characteristics that are inspiring you, and why? It's quite a guiding path to where you should be heading towards yourself. And then what does vitality mean to you? When are you in that perfect state of just flow and impact? And are you honoring your values? So I've got another exercise for us to do now, and I'm going to keep it short, okay? Because we are running out of time, but you can certainly elaborate on this in your own time at the weekend. So I would love you to now spend 3 minutes really designing your 25-year vision. So where would you like to be in 25 years? Who do you want to be with? How do you want to feel? What does your life look like? And just really use your imagination. Don't hold back. Don't have any rational thinking getting in the way. Just follow your heart, your passions, your imagination can run wild, fantasize, and just remove every limiting belief, obstacle, any logic, any realism. Just let your mind wander wildly for 3 minutes of where you'd love to be in 25 years. Okay, and now part 2 of this exercise, and I just want to spend 1 minute, 60, 90 seconds on this. Just what are your goals for the next 3 months? What do you really want to achieve in the next 3 months? And just jot this down for a minute or so. Okay, so the big reveal is that 3 months is 1% of 25 years. So actually, if there is no alignment between that big shiny 25-year vision and what you're doing in the next 3 months, that's a whopper chopper disconnect, and that's a real waste of you and your contribution and your dreams. So I would love for you to reflect later this evening or at the weekend around what that gap is and why. And if there's nothing on that 3-month list that gets you towards that 25-year dream, what actions can you take to really start to hone the dream and how you get there, and how you can really truly decide to live with purpose, because that is where you're going to feel very motivated to bounce out of bed every day. And energy really does flow where your attention goes. So just really make a decision commitment to what you will change to get closer to your dream, and be very conscious of that when you do the reflection later on tonight. So overall, I mean, we've covered a lot in an hour, and I appreciate this has been very fast, and I would love it if we'd had a whole day to do a workshop and do these indulgent exercises, but please do reflect further. But we've really looked at energy, we've looked at time, we've looked at intentionality, and I really hope that this has actually inspired you to take action, and that this will become not just 1 hour on a Wednesday, but something that becomes a pivotal change. And I'd just love you to take the perspective that we really are at this unprecedented time in history. We're living through the fourth industrial revolution, and we're just at the helm, being in the sort of digital marketing industry, and everything's become sort of measurable and malleable, and it's actually a privilege to be alive and working right now. And we've got so many advantages against above generations of yesteryear. And it almost, when you look at it like that, it's like, do we have the right to waste any of these resources that are uniquely gifted to us? I just think we should live with intentionality, and we should really focus on building out those habits that honor your purpose and goals, and just be aware of who you are to maximize you. So in terms of actually translating this into a solid impact action plan, and I could share these slides with you, of course, I'd love you to just really take the time to just own that bio-individuality and think about how you can maximize and optimize it. Live and think with this decisive intentionality, and then really just get down to the granularity of building habits that honor your values and purpose, because there's always space to either eliminate bad habits that aren't serving the greater good of you, and there's room to introduce new habits, and then make space in that schedule for what, who and where matters most, and just bring your most highest energy to the fore. And then I just will end on this point around decision making, because I just so believe that decisions really do determine destiny. So just respect the energy that's released when you make a decision to just step towards that goal or the vision. And it's really exciting and it's really powerful. And your current life is simply a manifestation of all those decisions that you've made so far. So if you're feeling stuck, what is it that you decided that got you to this place where you're stuck, and what potentially could you change? What do you choose next? Because deciding is incredibly exciting and incredibly powerful. And then please keep in touch with me. There's a free audiobook that goes into more detail around the stress productivity curve, actually, that's on my website. I publish weekly articles on LinkedIn, or you can subscribe to my private newsletter and follow me on socials. And yeah, I'm absolutely happy to give you a copy of my book. And with that, I shall just stop presenting. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bianca. That was truly inspirational. Really love that. Decisive intentionality. Definitely going to take that away and put my tea down and get some water and put my chocolate bar down and get an apple.
Good.
Photographic evidence, Romany.
I hope it's useful. Does everyone feel it strikes a chord in many ways, different ways?
I see a lot of people nodding their heads, right? So that's very good. Yeah, it was a great talk, and yeah, it was a privilege to have you here. And everyone, you know, give us feedback on Slack. I'll make sure that gets shared with Bianca.
Yes, please. Actually, I'd love feedback. Thank you.
Bianca's on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with her. Give her a plug. Yeah, it's all good energy. I think hopefully we can all go away and take something away, at least one takeaway, 1%. If we can improve ourselves 1%, we can have a positive impact on our well-being, ourselves, the people around us as well.
I can really recommend her book as well, and please do subscribe to the newsletter because it's really great to get those through as well. So
thank you.
Thanks, Bianca.
I'm
really
subscribed
nice
to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yay.
Same.
Thank you so much, everyone, and have lovely days, and blow out your candles now and then go forth and flourish.
Thank you, Bianca.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.